Hey guys, it's Big Mike, and like always, I'd like to thank you for being here today. Today we've got Jeff Quinto he's a 40-year veteran trader and trading coach, and we have Bob from Mirus Futures. It's actually because of Mirus Futures that I've got Jeff on here today. I saw a webinar that Jeff did on one of Mirus's websites, and so I contacted Mirus and said, hey, can you guys get Jeff to come on BMT? And they did. So in return, we're going to give the first 5 to 10 minutes of the webinar to Mirus to do a very quick overview of the services offered by Mirus Futures. Then we'll turn things over to Jeff for the bulk of today's webinar. And he is here to talk about overcoming fear in trading. Now, guys, I ask you to please bear with me today. I'm still very sick and coughing a lot, so I might have to mute myself here and there. But the presentation today is going to be focused entirely on overcoming fear in trading. He's got a lot of slides to go over, and we're going to do an extensive Q&A at the very end of his presentation. So I will ask everybody to please hold their questions for Jeff's presentation until the very end so we can do the Q&A at the end. Here in just a moment when I turn things over to Bob at Mirus. If you guys have questions about Mirus, then we can go ahead and get those answered here at the top of the webinar. All right, guys. Now, as always, the webinar is being recorded, and I will post the recording on BMT sometime tomorrow. You guys can check it out in the usual spot. I will also send a link to Jeff, so if any of you guys are here from his site, then he'll be able to give that link out to you so you can watch the recording sometime tomorrow. All right, guys, give me one moment, and I'll be turning things over to Bob at Mirus Futures.
Hey guys, and Mike, thanks for the kind introduction, and we're really happy to be with you this afternoon. Just want to do a quick check. Can everybody see the first screen with the slide? The intro slide.
Yeah, we see it and we can hear you just fine, Bob.
Perfect. Well, again, I really want to thank Mike for having us here in the room. Really think that you guys are going to find some great information with Jeff. He's been a long-term partner of Mirus. We've done a lot of educational events with him in the past. I've had the pleasure of working with him in Northwestern University through the classes there, continuing ed classes. So, you know, he's been a very good partner of Mirus's, and the webinar is sure to have some great tips for you guys. But before we get started, I just wanted to share some info about Mirus Futures and the services we offer. Mainly, I first wanted to talk about who all is involved in a trading account. You know, if you guys are new to trading or have a little bit of experience, you'll know that there's company names flying at you from every direction, whether it's through the educator that you're working with, the trading coach. You know, if you're following the forums and Big Mike, you know that there's a ton of different people out there. In terms of the trading account, there's also some names that you have to be familiar with. The first firm would be the FCM, which is the Futures Commissions Merchant. This is the main firm that you actually have the account open through. They clear the trades for you. They hold your funds in a segregated bank account in your name or the name of the account that you have, whether that's an LLC or a trust, etc. And they're also the ones that are responsible for providing you with daily, monthly, and year-end tax statements. That's really the extent of the exposure that you have with the clearing firm. For many of the clearing firms, their customers are the brokerage firms like Mirus Futures. So Mirus is an introducing broker. We're responsible for a number of different things, but mainly I like to say that we provide the tools necessary for you to trade. First, you can access a number of front-end trading software through Mirus. Really, one of the key features that we provide is the trading engine, your actual link to the exchange. So while we offer a number of different front-end softwares, the thing that sets Mirus apart is the back-end technology. We were the first to offer the Zenfire solution in 2006. Very proud to be the first and currently still the largest Zenfire broker. Zenfire helps our customers in a number of different ways. Firstly, like I said, it connects you to the exchange for market data. It was the first to offer unfiltered tick data directly from the exchange, really leveling the playing field with some of the large banks and hedge funds that use the same technology for their connections. So this really leveled the playing field for the individual investor or trader out there. Number two, it leverages the connection that it has for ultra-low latency, very fast and reliable for order execution as well. So Zenfire handles not only the market data, but it handles the order routing back to the exchange. So when you press buy or sell on the platform, that order is using Zenfire to get to the exchange very quickly. We also use Zenfire in-house for risk management, and it's a service that not a lot of brokerage firms offer. But our trade desk's experience has incredible experience in the markets and in risk management. Zenfire allows us to manage the risk very efficiently and effectively for our customers, many times offering the handling of accounts in emergency situations in a matter of seconds. Lastly, we do all of the customer relationship management at Mirus. So we have a great technical support staff, new accounts department, as well as experienced brokers who can help you with any type of question that you might have, whether that's a question on the technology, a question on the account setup, or even access to some of the other services that we offer. Now, I mentioned that you have access to a number of different front-end platforms. You can sign up and register for a demo account of any of the supported platforms that you see on our site. They all use the Zenfire connection, whether that's NinjaTrader, Multicharts, RTrader, or Scalp Tool. You'll be able to connect to the Zenfire network and place some demo trades. You'll get access to the live market data through Zenfire for this 30-day time period, and you can experience the speed and the reliability that we can offer firsthand. The platforms that you'll find on our website is not an exhaustive list of platforms that are available. So if you are using another platform, you may want to check with a Mirus representative to see if it can connect to Zenfire. In addition to the trading platforms and the actual tools necessary for trading, we do have a number of other available programs for our customers, whether that's a Trade Assist or Managed Futures program, where you're using a system that was created and developed by a third party, or in some cases a CTA, which would be a commodity trading advisor, to manage the account for you. We also offer full-service brokerage, where you would work directly with one of the brokers here to develop a trading plan, which can be executed either by you or that broker. For our customers, we also have access to daily technical analysis that's directed to your email account about a half hour or an hour before the markets open. We have a number of different webinars that we host with experts such as Jeff, so check out our website for information on those. And in addition, we also have hosting solutions. For those of you who are automated in your trading strategy, you may benefit from hosting that directly with the Zenfire trading engine. I'd be happy to speak with any of you if you had some questions about that. For the last 8 years, we really have led the way in terms of customer service. We offer, through our knowledgeable, licensed technical support team, remote desktop support. So if you are having trouble, we can log in and see what's ailing you. We also, again, have online training videos for any number of those platforms that we offer. So if you're unsure of how to use a certain feature, you may be able to find some resources available to you on our website. Again, we host live weekly webinars with experienced experts such as Jeff, and we do offer the free 30-day trial of the Zenfire trading engine with a number of supported front ends. So feel free to give me a call or send us an email to learn about any of these services. We'd be really happy to speak with any of you. And again, I'm here for the next few minutes to answer any questions that you might have.
Hey, thanks, Bob. And before we turn things over to Jeff, I want to remind everybody that actually Mirus Futures won the BMT Best of Trading Award for the best futures broker for the last 2 years in a row. And we're going to start voting for this year in December. So congratulations, Mirus. Okay, I have just a couple of questions here. We'll try to knock them out real fast, and then we're going to turn things over to Jeff. And for any other questions that you guys have about Mirus, then the contact information is on the slide there. I'm assuming that anyone that was negatively affected by the whole PFG process, you're accepting applications from those guys. Is there anything you can do to help them?
Absolutely. You know, the PFG and MF Global situations were, you know, black eyes on the industry as a whole. But one of the things that you can take from an account with Mirus is that the two clearing firms that we work with, Dorman Trading and Rosenthal Collins Group, are two of the really most conservative firms out there in terms of the investments that they use. They're also extremely helpful in addressing where they are invested. They're very transparent, posting their portfolio investments on their website on a monthly basis. So each of the firms is extremely transparent in that way. Right. And in fact, after the MF Global situation, CFTC named only 5 firms to accept MF Global customers. Both of the clearing firms that we work with were named as 2 that could accept those customers. So we really feel like that that addresses a lot of the concerns that many people have when choosing a clearing firm or broker these days.
Right. I see just one other question, and then I'll ask everybody else that wants to have questions or open an account with Mirus to email you directly. The last question is, do you take any Canadian clients, specifically from Ontario?
We do. You want to check with the broker beforehand in terms of you know, which provinces are accepted, because each clearing firm does have a different take on who they're going to accept. And my understanding of it is it's due to regulations in you know, each province of Canada. But both do accept Ontario customers, okay. But it's very limited beyond that.
Okay, so guys, since this presentation is for Jeff, I want to make sure that we give him as much time as we can. So I'm going to ask anyone else that has questions for Mirus to shoot him an email right there. The address is info@mirusfutures.com. Thank you very much, Bob. And give me just 1 second, and I'll be turning things over to Jeff.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, as I get started, you might let me know if you can hear me, which I think that you probably can.
Yeah, we can see it, and we can hear you just fine, Jeff.
Good. Well, we'll get started. I'm ready to get started. You'll see I've got my fear duo here. They look like they're pretty frightened, particularly the guy on the left. That is, I know you can't see me, but I've got to tell you in advance, that's not actually a picture of me. I've certainly felt like that guy before, but I've never actually, that's not a true picture of me. I want to start off by thanking Big Bites Trading Forum and my friends at Mirus Futures for presenting this Overcoming Fear presentation. And let's get started. What do you say? As we get started, however, I must tell you the derivatives transactions, including futures, are complex and carry a high degree of risk. They are intended for sophisticated investors and are not suitable for everyone. The Professional Trader Academy is educational in nature and does not provide brokerage services or make investment recommendations. All of it true. Okay, we'll move on from that. And let's see what we're going to do today. So today what we're going to do, the order of events is going to be as follows. First, what did we do on the floor when we had a cough or a sore throat? Now, I already know that Big Mike has been ill, and I know that he's coughing, and I've got a solution for him. And this is a solution we had on the trading floor, and here it is. Hall's Mentholypsis Honey Lemon. It was the only kind they used on the floor, and it seemed to work. And I probably have swallowed hundreds, if not thousands, of these. So I offer this to you, Big Mike, as a free gift from me if you're not doing it already.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. It worked on the floor. I think it'll work even on the electronic screen here. If you have the symptoms, if that's what's ailing you, we'll use those. So the first thing is to give you that free advice. But after that, I'm going to talk about who am I. I'm going to tell you who I am. We're going to talk about how fear got to be such a big deal, and we're going to talk about how you can overcome fear in trading. And lastly, we're going to have questions for Quinto, Q for Q. We're going to have a time for questions. We're going to be powering through this pretty fast, and I won't take your questions till the end. So Mike is going to hold on to them, and I will answer them at the end. And at the very last, there's going to be a way that you can get. You answer 3 questions. All 3 questions will be covered in the presentation. So if you're paying attention, you can answer 3 questions and you'll win a priceless prize. Now you might ask, what in the world is Jeff's priceless prize? And the answer is, it is 1 hour of mentoring with me at a time of your choosing. And the fact of the matter is that's worth at least $300. Actually, you have to go through my initial program even to do that, so it's worth even more than that. And if we come up with something that's really helpful for you, that's why I'm saying it's priceless, because if we come up with something really good that helps you in your trading, which I hope that we do, then it'll be priceless. It'll be certainly worth the effort. So we're happy that you're here, and so let's get started. So a little about me. Well, I started out as a trader on the floor, and this is about me sort of in the middle of my career on the floor. Somehow I had brown hair then. Now, what you can't see is I don't have brown hair now. I'm an older guy, but that's when I was a younger guy, and I traded on the floor. And I started out on the floor, and I thought this would be an easy thing. It turned out it was not. I got to the floor thinking it would be just another thing for me to be successful at, and I almost failed. And I think from that experience, it's helped me to train traders and to be understanding that the trading is hard. I know it is because it was hard for me. But I started out, and I was started out without a chance and without a clue, and I ended up becoming a clearing member of the exchange in my own name. After, however, 10 years on the floor, I was ready to move on, and I moved on to Chicago, and I became president of culminating in my becoming a president of a company called Rand Financial Services, which is a clearing member of all U.S. futures exchanges. And here I am when I was a member of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange floor, and there I'm meeting Jim Ryan, who is a hero of mine. Now, Jim Ryan, some of you will remember, is a former Olympian and a former congressman from Lawrence, Kansas, who was the first American high school runner to break the 4-minute mile. So he's an amazing person, amazing actually in more than just his running. He's an amazing person as to who he is, and there I am meeting him. So that was me in the 90s. I was president of Rand Financial Services, and I traveled the world, and I ended up meeting in that capacity some of the greatest traders in the world who remain some of my friends. But I wanted to get back to trading because I realized that the markets were changing, and they were fundamentally changing, and they were not going to be the change. And the floor trading that was my start was going away, and it was going to be replaced with something that I think is much, much better, where the playing field is leveled, and really a market for traders and electronic trading. So I went into the proprietary trading business, and we had offices in Chicago and in Vienna, Austria, and I was responsible for training the traders and for managing the risk. And from that I learned an awful lot about electronic trading, trading for myself, training traders. And today what I do is I live in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Those of you that are from the Chicago area will have some sense of where Lake Geneva is. I live in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I can look at the lake, and it's a beautiful lake, I might add. and I live here, and I train traders from around the world in my professional trader mentoring program, and I also have something called the Professional Trader Academy that where we train traders in each of those two places. So that's what I do. That's who I am. But actually, you didn't come to find out who I am. You came for something more and something different. And let's talk about fear. I love this quote. Fear defeats more people than any other one thing in the world. Now, this is Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said this like in 1818. So can you imagine? Even back in 1818, he said it succinctly. Fear defeats more people than any other one thing in the world. But let's talk about how fear got to be such a big deal. So I want you to pay special attention to this next slide, because I'm going to show you how fear got to be such a big deal. Here it is. Whoa! Can you see this guy? Now let me ask you something. If you're standing in the woods and this thing comes at you, what are you going to do? Holy smokes, I'm telling you, we're going to do something, aren't we? Well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. The fact of the matter is that fear that we might have had at that time as we're being chased by saber-toothed tigers served a very important purpose. I mean, when this guy's coming at you, you are not going to reason with this guy. I mean, you may be very clever, but I don't think you're going to be able to reason with this guy. I think you've got to do something. And I think that something so basic that you're going to have to do it, and you have to do it now. And that's where fear came in. It served a useful purpose when we were being chased by saber-toothed tigers. The fact is that from our past, we've learned how to deal when we are afraid. And our fear responses are, everybody talks about fight or flight, right? We either stand there and fight. Well, I don't know if the saber-toothed tiger, that's going to work very well. Fleeing, now that's a chance. Maybe you're a really fast runner, and maybe you can outrun the saber-toothed tiger. Maybe. So those are the things we talk about in terms of what we're going to do, fight or flight, fight or flee. But actually, those don't come into play in trading. Although I did see somebody hit a computer screen with his fist. I can tell you that that's not a good idea. There's a variety of reasons that we don't have time to go into at this moment, but that's not really a good thing to do. But the normal responses people talk about, fight or flight, is that relate to electronic trading. That doesn't really affect us. What do we do then? If we don't fight the market and we don't run from it, what is it that happens to us that when fear takes over our trading? And the answer is we freeze. What do I mean by freezing? Freezing prevents us. Fear, in freezing in this case, prevents us from making the calm, focused, effective decisions that lead to success. So in other words, what it does is it inhibits our decision making. And that's really the fear, that's how fear affects us, is that we freeze. We do not make decisions in the same way that we know that we should. So let me tell you about how fear almost ended my trading career before it even started. So I was a broker in Indianapolis, and I was had specializing in futures, and it was a pretty cool time in the futures market. It was 1972. Holy cow, that's a long time ago, isn't it? It was 1972, and I was a broker in Indianapolis, and I did pretty well as a broker. I traded in my own account, and things were working quite well, and I thought, you know what, I ought to go to the floor, because a guy like me is going to I'm going to do really well on the floor, and so I ought to go to the floor. And so I bought a membership in the Kansas City Board of Trade, and I moved to the floor, and I thought, well, you know what, I've been fairly successful in my young life so far, and the floor will just be another place for me to be successful. And so I stood around for a couple of weeks listening and watching, figuring out how I was going to make my first trade, and that was kind of something. It was people are kind of paying attention to the new guys to see what they're going to do when they make their first trade. It's kind of a rite of passage. And so here I am, thinking I'm a pretty big deal, although there's no reason for me to think that, I might add. So I think I'm a pretty big deal. And I'm thinking I'll make my first trade, and I'm there about 2 weeks, and then I make my first trade. And this is actually, I don't have any pictures of me early on because there was really no reason to take a picture of me, because I probably wasn't going to make it, actually. But be that as it may, I go to make my first trade. Now here's the part that's sort of weird about my first trade, and it is this. My first trade was a 10 lot. Now, why the first trade that I traded was not a 1 lot, which a normal person would have done, I don't know. But for some reason, my first trade was a 10 lot. And what I did, I was perfectly calm about it. I thought I ought to make this trade. So I sold 10 contracts, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Just like that. Pretty simple, right? Pretty easy. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. I just traded a 10 lot, just sold 10 contracts. Here I am. I started to put it on the card. Now on the floor, we had these trading cards, and you wrote who you traded with. And so here you can see I sold 2 to broker M at 10.42 at a price of 47 1/4. It would have been probably 347 1/4. And he represented ML, which was Merrill Lynch. And I'm at the top, I'm JQ. So that's my card. I'm filling it out. This is not actually my first card, because when I started to write these 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2 on the card, my hand started shaking so violently that I couldn't write. Now you got to remember that this is my very first trade, so all eyes are on me because I've just made my first trade, and it's a 10 lot, which is would cause people to pay attention. The new guys just traded 10 lots, and not only that, but my hands are shaking so violently that I can't write on the card. So can you see behind me in this picture on the left? Can you see that there's a table, and you can kind of see there are people standing up talking on the phone? Well, all over the trading floor, there are these sort of bar height desks. So people don't actually sit down on the trading floor, they stand up. And so I went over to one of these bar height desks, I took my card, and I held the card down with my elbow. So I put the card on the table with my elbow down, because my elbow was the only thing on my body that didn't seem to be shaking. And so here I am, I'm holding the card down with my elbow, and I write the names. You can't imagine what it looked like. I wish I had a copy of it as a memorial of how frightened I was. But I write with this shaky handwriting. I write who I traded with. I turned it in. Somehow they figured out who it was. I don't know how they even read my writing. So that was my very first trade. I couldn't even write down on the card. I was so frightened. Now I had never been frightened like this before. I've been in the Army. I've done some things in the Army that, as everybody does, that are, you can't imagine yourself doing them, but you do them. So I did some of those things, and they never bothered me. I was never fearful. And here I am, my very first trade on the floor, and I can't even write it down. So I had to figure out a way to get over that, or I was not going to make it. It just wasn't going to happen. So I'm going to show you what I did and suggest to you how you might do the same if fear is an issue for you. So let's talk about how does fear affect trading. And I'd like to show you my circle of fear. And this is my way of describing how fear affects trading. And you can see the circle, and fear is in the center because fear is the focal point of this kind of trading. If you're affected by fear, it's really the center of your problem. And so let's talk about how my circle of fear describes how fear defeats traders. And so we have fear. The first thing we have, well, here's my car. I actually wish this was my car. I'd be good with it. It's a Bentley, if you don't know. And I want to tell a story about to describe how fear leads to impatient and tentative trading. So you remember I said that it isn't fight or flight that we're worried about. It's this not making good decisions, not making calm, focused, rational decisions. Fear leads to instead impatient, tentative decisions. So let's look at this. Figure this. Okay, I'm in my car in front of you, and we're going down a 2-lane street. Now the 2-lane street has curbs on it, and what happens is I want to turn left into a parking lot, and it's a pretty busy street, and so you're behind me. And so I want you to kind of picture how this is going to feel. And so you're behind me, I put on my brakes, you see the brake lights go on, and then you see the turn signal go on, and you realize I'm going to turn left into this parking lot. But you can't go around me because the street is only a 2-lane street and it has curbs, so you have to wait for me to turn. And so you feel pretty good because you realize that there's a break in the traffic coming up ahead. You can kind of look ahead and you can see that there's a break in the cars, and you know that this guy in the Bentley in front of you, he's going to turn left, and it'll be over with. You'll be inconvenienced for a few moments and not more. And so you wait and you wait, and this break in the traffic comes, and nothing happens. And you go, what? How is this possible? There was a break in the traffic, and the guy didn't turn left. Now, you're probably a much nicer person than most people, but there would be people that would be honking the horn at this point. Most people probably would be cursing. Nobody outside the car could hear them curse, but they would be cursing because, after all, this guy missed this perfect time to turn left, and it inconveniences you even further because now you have to wait for the next break in the traffic. And so you look up ahead and you feel fairly good because there is, in fact, another break in the traffic coming. You know this guy's going to turn left. He's going to go there. You can go on your merry way. You're inconvenienced only slightly, and you know that he's going to turn left. Now, you can tell me you already know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is the break in the traffic comes up. He doesn't do anything. And you're like, now you're like inflamed. You can't even imagine such a horrible thing happening to you. This guy didn't turn left. Well, the same kind of thing is happening inside his car because he realized he missed one good opportunity to turn left. Now he's missed a second good opportunity to turn left. And so now can anybody guess what he's going to do? Well, I can tell you what he's going to do. The first even minor break, and he's mad at himself, and so what's he going to do? He's going to force himself to turn left, and so the first even minor break in the traffic, he's going to, and he's going to pull into the thing. He's going to do the one dangerous left turn in the whole thing. He missed the first good one, and he realized it. He missed the second good one, and he realized that too, and he's mad at himself. So what does he do? He takes the third one, which isn't even a good opportunity at all. It's the same way fear affects you in trading. It leads you to impatient, tentative trading. You're not making good decisions anymore. And so that's what it does. So the first thing that fear does is it leads to tentative, impatient trading. And what does tentative, impatient trading lead to? Well, it leads to this. And here we are. This is the story of me as a little boy. So here I am as a little boy, and we used to go to the pool near us in the north side of Indianapolis. It was called, as I recall, Northeast Way Park, and it had this diving tank. And what we would do, we would be the 10-year-old boys. We'd all be together, and we'd be doing these wild dives off the low dive again and again and again, fancy dives and laughing at each other and stuff like that. The boys would be on one side, the girls would be sort of somewhere else. They'd be looking towards us and not saying anything. We'd be looking toward them and likewise not saying anything. But we're doing these dives. And then about halfway through perhaps the morning, somebody says the one thing that a 10-year-old boy only knows one answer to. And here's what it is. Somebody's going to say, when you do this fancy dive off the low dive, somebody's going to say, I bet you can't do that off the high dive. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you're a 10-year-old boy, you only know one answer to that. And the one answer is, oh, yes, I can. Now, you've never done this dive off the high dive, right? You've never done it off the high dive, but you've been dared, and so you're going to do it. And so you go up the high dive, and I want you to remember what that must have felt like. Your legs are a little rubbery, aren't they? Your stomach's a little tight. Now you're standing on the high dive, and your stomach is a little tight, and you're thinking, oh, geez, I ought to just go back. But you don't do it. You force yourself. So what do? You tense up and you force yourself, and what happens? You do it one sort of a belly flop or other. It's not, you didn't get killed or anything, but it's not a good thing. Why is that? What happens? Because when you perceive risk that you're not comfortable with, you tense up and we force ourselves, which is the second part of my fears, my circle of fears, that it leads to forced trades and lack of discipline. You force yourself to do things that aren't really good for you. And what does that lead to? Well, that leads to losses and failure. Oh my gosh, what does that lead to? It leads to a lack of confidence. And what in turn does a lack of confidence lead to? It leads to tentative, impatient trading. So you can see we're going around in this ugly circle again and again and again, all centered on fear. Well, that doesn't sound like a very good plan to me, does it to you? I don't think it sounds like a very good plan. I think it sounds like trouble, actually. So we want to figure out what we're going to do. So what are we going to do? How can we face our fear and overcome it? That would be a pretty good question, right? Well, let me show you how. Here's how. Can you see that? There it is, Jeff's APC. There I am. There I am, the captain of an APC. The odd part about this picture is that's certainly me, but I don't recall being in the Chinese Army. I must have been, I guess, and it says Professional Trader Mentoring Program on the side, so that must be me. But this is Jeff's APC, and this is how we're gonna cure ourselves of fear. We're going to cure it with Jeff's APC. And so you can overcome your fear with my APC. Now, what in the world does Jeff mean? Well, the first step in overcoming fear is to admit it and facing it. You know, most of us that are traders are guys, not all. I think women have a better way of dealing with fear, actually, than men do very often, because as guys, very often what we do is we don't admit it. The first thing you have to do is if something bothers you, you have to admit it to yourself. You have to admit it to yourself, and you have to face it. That's the first step. So the first step, my A in APC, is admit your fear and face it. Okay, admit what you fear and then face your fear head on. I love this quote. Every time we face our fear, we gain strength, courage, and confidence in the doing. Boy, isn't that the truth. The next step in overcoming fear is to plan, prepare, and practice, the P in APC. Let's look how that works. We plan by developing your detailed written trading plan. One of the reasons that people are fearful, and in a way they should be, is that they don't have a plan. They just show up every day. They're going to try to do the right thing, in quotes. They don't have a written plan. You got to have a written plan. The fact of the matter is, unless you have a written plan, unless you've decided calmly away from trading what you're going to do in your plan, how are you going to know what to do? It's sort of when when they're firing shots at you and the market's firing shots at you, what are you going to do? You have to know what you're going to do, and the way you're going to know what to do is by having a written trading plan. I love this quote. A good plan today is better than the perfect plan next week. That was General Patton. I love that quote. It's the essence of this. People don't have a plan because they think, I don't really know how to do a plan. I'm not an expert at this, da-da-da-da-da. Well, there's plenty that you already know, and you just need to write it down. And you don't need the perfect plan. You just need a good plan. And if you have a good plan, you're going to be better than 99% of all traders who have no plan at all. So a good plan today is better than a perfect plan next week. I love this one. Good fortune is what happens when opportunity meets with planning. Thomas Alva Edison. And lastly, and this actually makes sense, it doesn't seem so, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. So that was Yogi Berra. Think about it, it actually makes sense. The second part of the APC is to prepare yourself physically. I believe that if you are going to be competing against the greatest traders in the world, you need to get fit. You need to get fit, you need to get rested, you need to get ready. You're competing against the greatest traders in the world. The beauty of this level playing field we now have in electronic trading is that we're competing against the greatest traders right across from us. They have equipment very similar to ours. What's the edge that we bring to this? The edge we bring to this is ourselves. We need to be fit. We need to be fit. We need to be rested. We need to be ready. So we need to do that. So we need to prepare ourselves physically. If we intend to be a world-class performer, we need to be fit like a world-class performer. We need to prepare ourselves emotionally, and by that I mean you need to have your personal life in order. When I was in the proprietary trading business, we had between 16 and 46 traders in Chicago and in Vienna, Austria, and I was responsible for training them and for coaching them and for the risk. And I can't tell you how often I would go up to someone and say, when he wasn't doing well, and I'd say, is everything okay with you? And they would always say, oh yeah, everything's fine, everything's fine. I'd say, well, really, something's going on with you, and I'd like to try to help you, but you got to tell me what's happening. And I would go through this, 58 questions, and finally the guy would say, well, my wife left me last night, or something really horrible had happened. Well, the fact is, you have to have your personal life in order. If you don't, you're not going to trade the same way. So you have to prepare yourself physically and prepare yourself emotionally. And in terms of emotionally, you have to have your personal life in order. I've been involved in trading for 40 years. I've known some of the greatest traders in the world. The fact of the matter is that people that really have longevity in trading have calm and serene personal lives. The people that are like wild and doing all this wild stuff, there's certainly traders that do that. But you know what? My experience over years says that the people that are really wild are going to do one of two things. They're either going to calm down or they're going to fail. And so the fact of the matter is you have to have your personal life in order. And the people that I know that are long-term successes uniformly have their personal lives in order. And you need to grow intellectually. You need to continue to learn as a trader. You got to remember that success in trading is a journey and not a destination. And that's what happens to people. Learning to trade is very hard. I don't think anybody would dispute that. But very often what happens when people start to get it, they figure they want to freeze everything. They're like, I know it now. I got it. Well, the fact is the market's always evolving. So even though you've got it, as you say, for now, the market's always changing. And so you're going to have to always be growing. To me, it's just part of the fun of being a trader. I know the market's evolving. I know I'm going to have to grow. Isn't that terrific? It's one of the best parts, actually. Okay, and you need to set yourself up for success. I wrote something called the 4 Steps of Success in Futures Trading. This is the second step, which I call setting yourself up for success. It's so important. People overlook this. They think trading is all about the setup and nothing else. Well, the setup is part of it, but it's not the most important part. There's lots of things that are more important, one of which is you need to be yourself. You need to set yourself up for success and to deserve success. And you do that by preparing yourself physically, emotionally, and intellectually. And you need to practice. Now, practice, I'm talking about practice on the simulator or with small size to overcome your fear. So my idea on using the simulator or the live market is if you're able to hold your own, you should be on the live market. If you're losing money, you should be on a simulator, full stop. Losing money in the live market, that's for suckers. It really is. So if you're not able to make money in the live market, you need to be on the simulator. And if you're able to hold your own on the simulator, you need to be in the live market because you need to experience that. But you need to experience it where you're able to hold your own. So my idea of practicing is you do it on the simulator or with small size to overcome your fear. Other professionals regularly practice their skills on simulators. I know that Tiger Woods is maybe not today the greatest example of things, but I'll tell you what, he's a guy that practices. And there's a picture of me putting the green coat of the Masters on Tiger Woods. You know what? I don't remember that. I would have thought I would have remembered that. Well, as they say, pictures don't lie. So here I am putting the green coat of the Masters on Tiger Woods. What does Tiger Woods do? One of the things he's really famous for is that when he's done with a round of tournament golf, where does he go? Does he go to the bar? Does he go to his room and watch TV? What does he do? The answer is he goes to the practice tee, and he practices shots that he'd like to do better in the next day of the tournament. Now you can say, is the practice tee exactly like tournament golf? Well, the answer is obvious. No, it's not exactly like tournament golf, but you know what? He can practice and hone his skills in his simulator, the golf simulator, the practice tee, so when he comes out next time and there's money on the line, he'll be that much better because he practiced. So that's what professional athletes do. Airline pilots. Here's a picture of me in front of a Learjet. I don't recall that actually. Airline pilots. I had a mentoring trader that I worked with in Hong Kong that was a pilot for a Chinese flag airline. He's an English expat that flies for a Chinese airline. And he was going from one size of Airbus to the next biggest size of Airbus. And the fact of the matter is that he went away to learn how to fly. And I thought, well, you know, I know how you learn how to fly. You do something called touch and goes. Those of you that have been involved in flying have heard of touch and goes. It's where you go and you fly over an airfield and you go down. You just touch the wheels down as if you're landing, and once you've got them down, you then take off again and do it again and again. And that's what I figured this guy was doing with this big Airbus, and somewhere in northern China, I figured, you know, away from people. And I said to him, I said, well, tell me about the training. Did you like flying this when he came back from his training on this new big Airbus? I said, well, how do you like flying it? And he says, well, you know, I've actually never flown it in the air. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. He says, you know, you don't learn to fly in the air. It's too expensive. And then I said, well, what about the touch and goes? And he says, touch and goes? Are you kidding? It probably costs $10,000 for a plane to come down like that. They can't be doing that all day. You do it on the simulator. And so his total training was on the simulator. When the first time he'll fly, or he flew, this new big Airbus, it was in the air. And there were passengers behind him. And so the fact is that airline pilots use simulators to great effect. And lastly, and this was what I found out, I didn't know this, I'm happy about this though, is that doctors use simulators. Now you can see this guy. This guy's not you. He is a doctor simulator, some sort of operation simulator. So let me ask you this, as silly as he might look, would you rather have your doctor learn a new operation on a simulator or on you? Well, I know what I would vote for. I think that you would vote for the same thing. So other professionals regularly use simulators to practice. You can too. Okay, now that you admit your fear, you plan, prepare, and practice, what's the next step? Well, this is the final step. The next step is you conquer your fear. Now, how do we do that? We conquer our fear by repeatedly facing it. We repeatedly face it, having first admitted it, and then planned, prepared, and practiced. So we're facing it, but we're facing it from a different place than when we first had it. We're in a more advanced, more confident place than we were before. I love this one. Fear, the worst of all enemies, can be effectively cured by forced repetition of acts of courage. Napoleon Hill. And I like this one too. You must do the thing that you fear until the fear of that thing becomes no more. Beautiful quote. It's just a fact. Ultimately, success in trading comes from replacing fear with confidence. So remember our circle of fear? Let me show you my circle of success. And here's how the circle of success works. And it starts out with confidence. You start out confident. You're confident to calmly trade, exploiting opportunities and cutting losses. You have patience. Patience to wait for the very best trades. You know, fearful people don't have confidence. They just don't. They don't have confidence and they don't have patience. They just don't. So if you're a successful trader, has both confidence and patience, and that leads to discipline, to unfailingly follow your plan. In other words, you already know what your plan is, and you're going to unfailingly follow it. You're going to have discipline, and what does that lead to? That leads to what you're going to need. You're going to need humility. Now, this is one that people sort of forget about. It's a key to long-term success. You need to have humility. You need to understand that you're successful because of your hard work, but you're going to have to continuously be learning. So you need to be humble. The market is a great humbler, isn't it? And so what I want you to do is I want you to have humility. I want you to graciously accept success. And what does that lead to? That leads to more confidence, which leads to more patience, which leads to greater discipline, which leads to greater humility. So there you are. That's our circle of success. And watch it here. Look at them side by side. Think of how this changes. And I want you to think about how you might change using my APC and how you're going to go from this fear, the circle of fear of tentative impatient trading, forced trades and lack of discipline, losses and failure, lack of confidence, how that's going to lead to instead trading this centered on success, where you're confident, you're patient, you're disciplined, and you're humble. All together. It's a great thing. So there it is. We're going to admit our fear. We're going to plan, prepare, and practice, and we're going to conquer our fear by repeatedly facing it. So there we are. There's some books I recommend. First one is not a book at all about trading. Actually, none of these books are about trading. It's called Unleash the Warrior Within by Richard Markowitz. You probably do not know that name, but you may have seen him. He's on the History Channel, on actually the Military Channel, which is a sub-channel of the History Channel. He has a show called Future Weapons, and he is a former Navy SEAL. And here's the interesting thing about him. He wrote a book, this Unleash the Warrior Within. It's about his experiences as a Navy SEAL, as learned the training that it takes to become a Navy SEAL. And the fact of the matter is, the second chapter in his book is Defeat the Imposter Called Fear. Now, wait a minute. This guy's a Navy SEAL. These guys are the bravest guys of the brave. They're the best of the best. And the second chapter is about fear. Holy smokes. Well, you know what? If he can write about fear, you and I can admit that we have fear. And so it's a great book to read. The second book, Transcending Fear, Brian Germain. Brian Germain is a champion skydiver who was afraid of heights. Can you imagine such a thing? I can't, actually. I think it's quite incredible. But he's a champion skydiver who was afraid of heights, and he talks about fear. Skydiving is a lot about fear. You have to overcome it, obviously, to jump out of a perfectly good plane into the sky. It's a great book. And the last one is called The Road to Unafraid by Jeff Strucker. Jeff Strucker is a guy, you don't know the name, but you probably saw a character in a movie that was playing him. And the movie was called Black Hawk Down. Do you remember Black Hawk Down? Do you remember that they had this incredible fight in Mogadishu, and then they fought their way back with a guy who sadly eventually died. They were bringing him back for medical care, and they're in this Humvee, and the Humvee's getting shot, it's getting fired at by RPCs and RPGs, and in any event, it's just a horrific thing. They make it back to the encampment where they're safe, and you think, oh my gosh, you guys, you made it back, and you can just practically see them get out of the Humvee and kiss the ground. And the captain, or the guy, not the captain, but the guy who's the head of this, goes up to this special forces soldier and says, you have to go back. And he says, I've ordered an APC from the Pakistanis next door to us, and you got to go back. The guy that he tells that to is Jeff Strucker. And he writes this book. It's an incredible book. It's the story of him. It's a story that includes there's a faith component to that, which doesn't bother me. It's actually important for me, but I should tell you in advance that there is a faith component to Jeff Strucker, as there might be. If you'd gone through that, I believe that you would have a faith component in your life. Anyway, it's a great book. The last quote I like is, don't let the fear of striking out hold you back. Boy, that's a fact, isn't it? Okay, now we have time for a few questions. We have a time limit, and we've got some, I can see some questions up here. Okay, somebody talks about the simulator. I actually did 3 videos for the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. They're available on the education section of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange group website under Getting Started. And in any event, I did a video for the CME on using the simulator. I would share with you that I think if you read what I have to say about how you might use a simulator, there is a way to use the simulator that's a smart way to use it. It's not smart to lose money to the market. You know, to me, it's somebody else. We don't need to lose money to the market. It's somebody else should. You can let other people do that. People say, well, you pay your dues. I don't think so. I think that trading is hard enough. You can learn how to trade on the simulator, then transfer to the live market. And in this video, it's a free video, you'll find out how I think you ought to do that. Okay. Okay, that's a good question because, you know, it's easy for me to say, oh, yes, you do all these things and you'll overcome fear. Oh, you just follow Jeff's plan. Well, that's actually what I'm saying, isn't it? I know that it's not easy. I know that it's not. I know that you have demons that you have to deal with in terms of fear. I know that. I had them too, you know. I would have been back in Indianapolis where I came from after I made my first trade if I had an exit strategy. Actually, I wasn't smart enough to have an exit strategy, so that's probably one of the big reasons that I made it as a trader, is that I didn't have anything, I didn't have a better place to go. I was already there. I didn't know how to leave, and so I had to make it work. I know how fear works. I know that it's hard to do. The trading plan, I also did a video on the trading plan on the CME website. I did a video on the trading plan. It's free. I also have my Professional Trader Academy. I've got my my email address here, and you can check out professionaltraderacademy.com. I show you how to do that there. That isn't the purpose of this. It isn't to do that. But anyway, so somebody says, where do we get the videos? They're on the CME website, cmegroup.com. Okay, let's see. Okay, somebody says they're in Vienna. I love Vienna. I must shout out to the person in Vienna. I love Vienna. So there's so much to love about Vienna, isn't there? It's beautiful. The people are wonderful. The food's delicious. We had an office there that it was just, actually our office was off St. Stephensplatz, and beautiful, beautiful place. Let's see here. Yeah, now somebody mentions, what about writing? Would you agree that writing your feelings and thoughts is useful? Yes, I do. I have a way of actually writing thoughts, writing about your emotions, about tracking your emotions and how you feel. Actually, I do it right on the chart that you use to trade. It's not a subject for this, but you need to notice these things. One of the things that people do at their own peril is they try to not notice them. You know, they try to just pretend they aren't there. I don't want you to do that. That's why the very first one is admit it. I want you to admit it. Because once you admit it, you can expose it for the imposter that it is, just like in the second chapter of the Markowitz books, you know, and Defeat the Imposter Called Fear. It is an imposter. It is an imposter, and you need to face it, and once you do, you're okay. Somebody says, well, they've been on the simulator for 2 years, and you know, how do you move to the live market? I cover that in this free video. There's a specific way that you should do it, and if you do that, I think you'll have somebody here adds the heads that. Let's see.
Hey, Jeff, it's Mike.
So the question is, how do you break this? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I see on the forum, I see a lot of people that consistently have problems of basically not being able to pull the trigger. And what I've always thought that it is, from my own experience in the past, as well as just from looking at all the people that write posts on the forum, is it usually comes down to they're either trading too big, okay, so they're uncomfortable with their size. They have no confidence in their plan, like they haven't researched it properly, or they don't believe in it. They don't know that there's an actual edge there. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that there's something that someone can specifically do whenever they're having that problem of not pulling the trigger? They see their setup, they think that they're supposed to take this trade, but they either talk themselves out of it or whatever, and they end up not taking the trade. What advice do you have for those people?
Yeah, here's what I did. Now, when I learned how to trade electronically, and before that, when I learned how to trade on the floor, we didn't have simulators. I wish that we did. What I've always done is I call it taking the heat off. So to me, I go down to trade one lots. In other words, I was a larger trader than that, of course. And so you take the heat off, and you build your confidence back. I think if you use the simulator correctly, that's really what you're doing. You're taking the heat off. I like traders being on the live market, but they need to hold their own. In other words, it's not being on the live market and jamming yourself. So my advice is that you do as I've said, that you put these things in play. You talked about, you just said, Mike, about the not being confident in their trading plan. You need to have a written plan. You know, traders don't have written plans. They kind of do what they say, well, I'm trading like this, and they don't really have it written down. I think that when I say a written trading plan, I mean a specific written trading plan that's something that you're comfortable with, and there are resources that you can find to help you draw on. I think that the CME even has I did a small booklet for the CME that has a trading plan template in it. So there's things that you can do like that, places that you can go. It doesn't cost anything, that you can get that information. Yeah, and somebody says, if you trade mechanically, let's talk about that. One solution to this is if you traded mechanically, it would be as if you relegated the responsibility for discipline to a system. The trouble with that is that I'm not sure that the market is going to pay us being you and me, for our algorithmic trading. I think that there are companies that have, literally hundreds of people, some of whom are, PhDs in mathematics and computer science and all this stuff. They're designing trading systems. I'm not sure that I hold much hope for at least me designing a system that would beat that if that's where we're competing. But you know what? I can compete on my own wits. And I think that there is today, and there will continue to be, the market will pay people for their disciplined, good trading. And I think that, at least for me, my experience is that if you're a sort of an amateur trader trying to be an algorithmic trader, I think it's a very tough road to go. To me, I don't see that as a good place to invest our efforts, because I think there's just so much money and so much that is being spent in order to compete in that arena. It's not some place that I think that's a good place for us. But that's my personal opinion, and
Jeff, let me ask
you
you.
To be proven wrong.
Let me ask you about another pattern that I see very frequently on the forum, and that's that people are trading sim for an extended period of time, and they're doing well, and then they go cash, and everything just goes to hell. Okay, I mean they usually exhibit one of the following: they have a bad day, okay, and they either did that because they completely went off the reservation and no longer traded anything that even resembled their plan. They threw the plan out the window. They did things that they never did on sim. They moved their stock back. They added to losers. I mean, you name it, they did it, right?
Sure.
What advice do you have for people that and I've seen this happen multiple times. One person that will do it, and they'll go back on sim, and then they'll do it again, and they go back on sim. What advice do you have for someone in that situation?
Right. I think you have to decide. You have to decide whether you're serious about this or you're just a hobbyist trader. And I don't know how to say that less harshly. There are tools available to you that don't even cost. If you have a written trading plan, you have to follow it. It doesn't have to be the perfect plan. That's the interesting thing. It just has to be a good plan, but you have to follow it. People that, if you don't have discipline, you're going to have to get it, or the market's going to eat you alive. And that's just a reality. It's a stark reality. So people that go back and forth, the good news is you can decide to be different starting now. In other words, if that's your pattern from the past, you know what? That's the past. You get to start over again today. And the way you start over again today is by you have a written trading plan, not the best ever, but you have a good written trading plan, and you follow it. You have risk rules that you follow. The market is always going to punish people who don't have discipline. They're going to provide money for other people that do have discipline. So you have to decide who you're going to be. And if you decide that you're going to have discipline, that you're going to do the things you know that you need to do, and that you're not going to go off the reservation, then you're going to do well. The market is a pretty good place to be. But if you're not going to decide that, it's not going to work. And so all these things, really, it comes back to you. But you need to have some tools. Now, I understand that if you don't have tools, if you don't have a written trading plan, I don't know how you can expect to ever make it as a trader. This is too hard. You need to make decisions, particularly in terms of risk, outside of the trading day. You need to already know what are you going to do. How much are you going to lose today? How much are you going to risk? How much are you going to risk per trade? How many trades are you going to do? All of those things need to be decided outside of the trading day, and then you need to stick with them. And when you do that, you'll be successful. If you don't do that, you will not. And I know that it's hard for people. People are basically undisciplined in their lives, and the markets punish people for that lack of discipline. And here somebody says no business owner operates without a business plan. It's just the truth. But we go into trading without a plan because, you know, we think that it's not important, and this is a fun thing, and we're having a great time trading, and, you know, it's a cool thing to be doing. And you just need to have the plan, and you need to follow it. And that's really that's how this works in the way that we'll have a good result. And there's one quote. There's a quote that I have. It's on my computer. It's been on my computer for years, and I think it sums up how I feel about this. And here's what it says: in life and in trading, you pay the price of discipline, or you pay the price of regret. Now, that's the only quote that I have. It's the only quote that I carry with me. It's the only one that I have because it sums up how I feel. You pay the price of discipline, or you pay the price of regret. And the price of regret is too heavy a price. I'm not willing to pay that. And I think once you get, no matter where you are, you know, the good news is whatever you were yesterday is yesterday. You don't have to be the person you were yesterday. Be somebody new, and be somebody that has discipline, that has a trading plan, that's serious about this. You'll be rewarded. If you keep wandering around in the old way, you already know that it doesn't work. And like I say, there are resources for you that don't even cost you anything. So it's not like I'm saying, well, you have to invest in something to get this. You can find those resources, and my suggestion is that you use them. They'll use them to a good end.
Jeff, one of the last things that I wanted to ask you is to do with journaling. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm a big advocate. Anyone that knows me on the site knows that I always try to get people to journal. And mm-hmm. I'm not talking about an Excel spreadsheet, you know, enter price, exit price. Right. You know, your trading platform can spit out that report. What I like to see people do is just very briefly, even just 5 words. Why did you enter where you did? Why did you exit where you did? That alone would be a very good start for most people. And what I find is that if you're willing to just to write that down and as close to real time as possible, so that your mind doesn't come up with some after-the-fact reason that didn't really exist at the time of the trade. You do it as close to real time as possible, and then you go back and you review that information. You know, let's say at the end of the weekend, you go back and look at the prior week's trades. You're going to see a bunch of patterns. I wanted to get your take on journaling. What do you think, you know, that the benefits are? What do you think people should be doing if they're going in circles? You know, what can they do to break those patterns?
Yeah, it's a great thing. You know, it's funny that you say that, because I used to think that journaling was a waste of time. Honestly, I did. And then I started watching how it affected people, and I started doing it myself. And now I journal every day. The way I do it is it relates to trading. My suggestion to traders that I train is that they actually, on the chart that they trade, they put a little text box. If you use Ninja, it's real easy. I think if you use it, whatever software you use, it's real easy to put a text box. It doesn't even have to be complete sentences, but it ought to say kind of what was your mood, what are you learning. And the reason that you do that, and then my suggestion is you save each chart with your trades on the chart, with your journal of why you did what you did and what was affecting you, and you save it in a file. And the file, of course, would have what you traded and the date. And if you have more than one chart for the day, you'd have, you know, number 1, 2, 3, 4. People send me these, actually. And what you do is, the reason is, it gives you something to go back and look at and see what you were thinking of, see what you were overcoming. Because what happens is, let's say that right now you're going over the 6 months ago, and you're thinking, you know, I don't feel that good about how I'm doing. And then you realize, when you look at what you were facing 6 months ago, that you've actually overcome things. So it serves as a journal of what you've overcome in the process. I think it's very powerful. And when you write things down, if you've written them like every day you have a discipline problem, you know, I wasn't disciplined, you're going to read that and you're going to go, wait a minute, what's up with me? You know, didn't Jeff say you pay the price of discipline or you pay the price of regret? You know, I think the journaling is huge, and I didn't used to think that, and I think I've learned a great deal by knowing that is something very important.
I think that's great. That's a really great idea, actually, that I had not heard before. That's very, very simple. Makes a lot of sense of putting the text right on the chart. So I'm gonna take that and start telling people to do that, because, you know, it's one of the hardest parts of the journal is just having the discipline to do the journal. People think they don't need it. People think there's not going to be a benefit from it, and obviously I think that there will be.
Oh, absolutely. Now we have something exciting to go. Is there any other questions that we should answer before we go on, Mike?
No, I think we're good to go.
Okay, then now somebody has the list. Can everybody see? Is there a way that somebody can see? There's a link to my book and my CME book that somebody's put on the questions. I don't know how to make it so that other people can see it, however.
I'll post that on the thread
anyway,
so people can see it.
It's a free. Okay, that's cool. Well, that's good. Okay, so thank you. You guys have been great. I love these good questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them. You can ask me questions at jeff@professionaltraderacademy.com if you have further questions. Now let's do this. Thanks to our sponsors for the day, Big Mike's Trading Forum and Mirus Futures. I have 3 questions to win a priceless prize. So here's what's going to happen. What I want you to do is I'm going to ask 3 questions. I want you to answer them exactly the way, then give the correct answers in one email. Don't answer 3, one email, excuse me, one on the chat. On this question thing, I want you on the question thing, I want you to put 1, 2, 3 on the same line. The first one to do that's going to win an hour with me, $300 value. But the first one to do it. So you're going to answer these 3 questions, and here's what they are. The first question, according to anyone who knows anything, what is the best trading forum? Gosh, I wonder. We're going to think about that for a minute. According to anyone who knows anything. Now, this is all going to be together. You already know. People are already answering, but this isn't the time yet. You got to have all 3 questions on the same line. So this doesn't count. It doesn't count against you either, okay? According to anyone that knows anything, what is the best trading forum? Number 2, according to Big Mike's Trading Forum, who was the futures broker of the year for the last 2 years? I wonder who that was. Okay, I've got my answer picked up. So what you ought to do, here's the smart thing to do. You start writing it in. You don't send it yet. You write it in because I want it on the same line. So you start writing this, and then the third one is, what 40-year professional trader has been called America's preeminent trading mentor? Oh, my, there it is. I see the name. Okay, Mike, you be the judge of which one. Well, we've got 175 people with the right answer. You have a smart group here. I've got to tell you, this is an amazing group. Usually I get a couple of people that have the right answer. Your guys are the smartest group I've ever seen because we must have, I'm not exaggerating to say we've got 20 people.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, I'll tell you what, you win the prize.
The first person is Rick, and I apologize for messing up your last name, Rick. Rick Rahel. If you'll, yeah. What do you want, the email address? So that they can...
Yeah. Just have him do this. Send him. Do me a favor. Send Mike the email. Send Mike your name. Mike will send me the email address, and we'll get together and we'll try to do this in the next couple of weeks. But you just won an hour. It's worth $300. Congratulations. You are a winner. You already knew that. You all are, actually. That's the most I've ever had when I've done one of these fun things. That's the most and the quickest. So congratulations to you people. You win the number 4 is what's the best audience of a webinar known to man? And the answer is Big Mike's Trading Forum. I want to thank you. So there's the answer, of course. Big Mike's Trading Forum is for anybody that knows anything. What's the best trading forum? What's the best futures broker according to Big Mike's Trading Forum? Mirus Futures, and the right answer is what 40-year professional trader has been called America's preeminent trading mentor. Holy cow, I'm proud of myself. Jeff Quinto, that's me. So that's it. I want to thank you very much. If you want to, I'm giving you the CME, that link to the CME booklet that I did. It's free. You can get it. Big Mike's going to put it on the website. Get it. It's a great thing. And if you want to find out more about what I do, it's professionaltraderacademy.com. I want to thank you very much for a wonderful, enjoyable time. This has been a blast. I hope it's been good for you.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you, Bob, at Mirus. I will be posting the recording for the webinar sometime tomorrow, and I will send a link to Jeff so that if he wants to send it out to his followers, he can do so. And then that link to Jeff's trading plan, I put it in the thread. So on BMT, if you do a search for Jeff Quinto, you'll see the webinar thread, and the link to his book or to that plan is in there. All right, thank you very much, Jeff. I look forward to having you back sometime again in the future.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, guys. I'll see everybody on the forum. Have a good one.